Hey, Lightworkers. So, I'm going to talk about what I mean when I say give to live and live to give. Well, we are in the season of giving, right? So, all of us probably have giving on our mind. But I want to share that there's actually a science behind giving. And this is really, we want to know the science because then we'll know why we want to give. It's actually very good for us. I'm also going to talk about when we want to give, like when's a good time to give, and when is it right to not give, because those are actually both part of that science. And then I want to talk about how giving prospers not just the receiver, but also the giver. So I'm going to start with the science because the science of giving, understanding this is what helped me develop my prosperity consciousness. See, when I started at Unity back in the year 2000, I had a very strong lack consciousness, this idea that there was not enough in my life. And so my giving was influenced by that. I was afraid to throw 20 bucks in the basket because I felt like I was losing that money. But then also I found myself over giving when it came to volunteering because I was wanting to be liked. I wanted to be accepted. And so I thought, if I just keep volunteering enough, then people will like me. Okay, so it was learning the science behind giving that helped me make headway in healing that lack consciousness. So there is science, and there were scientific studies done with fMRI technology. And in these studies, in scanning many brains, what was discovered is that giving is actually hardwired into us. And it's seen by the brain as a pleasurable activity. So yes, giving is a pleasurable activity to our brain. Now, it doesn't always feel this way because if we are under stress or if we are in survival mode, if we are feeling hostility or we're feeling the judgmentalness of social media or family or friends or whatever, we're not going to be aligned with our inner being. And so our giving will not be given with an open, generous heart. So we won't be able to give. We won't have the experience. And so the act of giving is innately hardwired into each of us, but we also have to be aligned with our inner being to be able to be free, to feel the freedom in giving. Also, when we give with a generous and loving heart, our body releases life-affirming hormones of DHEA. And these move our body toward well-being. Okay, this hormone does. It also increases oxytocin, so we feel more love. Now, I used to think if I wanted to feel more love, I had to get more people to love me. But that's not the case. We may not actually feel the love of other people, right? If we don't know about it, right? So we are actually, the expression of love is coming up from within us. That's why we are considered a love amplifier. So the release of oxytocin makes us feel more of that love, even if nothing around us is changing. Also, the act of giving releases something called nitric oxide, and that affects our heart, our arteries, and our lungs. It helps to dilate the muscles so that we feel an expansive rush of love. Like right there, right there. You felt it before. When you've given something and you gave it with such a loving heart, you felt like a rush of love, a wave of love that just moved right through you. When we are giving with a generous, loving, open heart, our mind and our heart and our mind, our brain, go into coherence. And when we experience heart-brain coherence, we are more open to inspiration and solutions, and we'll feel more in touch and more connected with the allness of the all. And we'll feel more love and compassion. So you can see the act of giving with a loving, open heart, it not only heals our consciousness and helps us to expand our consciousness, but it helps our body to feel better also, right? It's physically, it is very good for us. So when do we want to give? When do we want to give? Well, our passion for something may end up being the foundation for our giving. This is why some people feel very passionate, maybe about the homeless or about animal shelters. And because they feel that passion, that's where they pour their giving into, whether it's financial giving or their time. They just feel so strongly about it. They just have to participate. So anywhere that we feel proactive or we care about something, that's a good place to give. You know, if we feel inspired or interested in something, that might be where we want to give. If we feel love and compassion towards something, or if we found ourselves in a situation where someone or something, maybe an institution, helped us to feel loved and supported, we might feel then that we want to give back to that. Okay, so we give when it feels good. We give when it feels good, but also not all giving may feel really good, especially if you find yourself giving to maybe to like a fundraiser because some terrible tragedy happened. So saying that it felt good to give to that may be kind of odd to feel, but it feels right. All right. So, I mean, I recently, a couple years ago, I gave to a local fundraiser because a family, their whole house burned down, like right before the holidays. So I gave to that, but I wasn't running around like, oh, I'm so happy I gave to this. That's not really what I was feeling, but it felt right. And it felt compassionate and kind to give in that situation. Okay. So that's when we can give. But how about when not to give? This is actually really important. Knowing when not to give may be one of the greatest steps that we can take into healing our own lack consciousness. Now, we don't want to give if it makes us feel exhausted or overwhelmed. See, this is why I used to overgive was because I wanted to feel better about myself. But there are a lot of reasons that people can overgive, right? People might overgive because maybe they want to control a situation, or they overgive because, they want to, well, like me, they want to show up in a certain way and have people think wonderful things about them. Look at all that hard work Deanna did, right? She's amazing, right? So that's why I overgave and I volunteered for every single thing that came my way. But see, if we're feeling exhausted, if we're feeling overwhelmed, we're not giving from an open, gracious, loving, joyful heart, are we? How about if we feel like we don't have a choice, or we feel obligated, or like we're being guilt tripped or shamed into giving? This happened to me ages ago. There was a local grocery store. And when you stood in line and when somebody was checking out, with all their food, the cashier would really loud, do you want to donate, to our whatever? And if the person donated, the cashier would shout out how much was just donated by somebody. And it felt really weird to me to like walk up there and like, do you want to donate? I didn't want to say no because I was afraid of what the people around me would think. So I felt shamed into giving. It didn't feel good to do this. And I like almost wanted to just avoid this store. But then one day I was in line and I heard the woman ahead of me say, when they asked her, do you want to donate, to our thing? And she said, oh, no, thanks, I'm good. And so I was like, what? You can say no? So when it was my turn in line and they asked me if I wanted to donate, I said, no, thanks, I'm good. So when we learn when we shouldn't give, like it helps us to become more assertive and to be really clear with our boundaries, right? And so then we're not giving out of resentfulness or this feeling of obligation. See, if we are giving out of any of those conditions, it's never going to feel good for us, Right? And so what we're doing is we're not releasing all those life affirming hormones. There's not all that beautiful activity, making us feel better in our heart and our mind and our soul, right? So we're releasing cortisol into our system, the stress hormone. Okay. Also, another reason that we wouldn't want to give, that we don't want to give, is we don't want to give to get something back. We don't want to give to manipulate or trick a person into doing something nice for us. All right. Think about that kind of giving as, just come right on out and say, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. But it's not giving, right? It's not generous giving. It can be a generous trade, and you might, that's just between you and the person that you're working things out with. But you wouldn't go into your favorite coffee house and expect them to just give you coffee, right? There is a trade going on. They expect payment. Okay. So we want to look at how we feel about giving, but we also want to know when not to give. Because if we're giving when we are exhausted, overwhelmed, or we're trying to avoid feeling shame, or we're trying to get something back, we are dumping cortisol into our system. And it's not going to support our journey into well-being, okay? Not at all. Now, giving also prospers the giver and the receiver. And so from the book of Proverbs 18, chapter 18, verse 16, it says, a gift opens doors and it gives access to the great. Charles Fillmore defines a gift as the manifestation of spirit. Of course, this is when we are giving with an open, loving heart. So when we give with an open, loving heart, we are opening doors for greater things. Now in Luke chapter 6, verse 38, it says, for with the measure you give, it will be given back to you, and even more. Now, this is where we really want to pay attention to, why are we giving? Am I giving because I want to give and I feel like inspired, it feels like the right thing? Or am I giving because I feel shame and I resent that I have to do this? Because however it is that we give, we're going to receive that back, and more and more. Okay, so we want to make sure we're really clear on why we're giving the way that we're giving, right? When we give with a loving, open heart, we're giving with a consciousness of more than enough. What we're going to receive back is more than enough. But if we're giving with this limited consciousness of not enough, we're going to keep receiving back then not enough, not enough. And that will show up in our experience in our life. We'll feel like there's just never enough, right? There's not enough of what I need. A generous heart triggers good things to start happening in our system, and then even more, right? And a generous heart triggers like finding more good in our lives, creating greater things. So we're increasing the good in our lives. So we are experiencing everything that we are giving, and that's how it turns into so much more, right? We experience the goodness that we are sending out there. Now, there's also this idea about giving what we need, right? I heard about this first in the spiritual circle, very similar to Unity. Like, what does that mean, giving what we need? And it's not a literal thing, right? Like, oh, if I'm hungry and I need a sandwich, I'll give somebody a sandwich. It's not that. It's more about, what is the experience we need? What is the emotional state that we need? Do we need some courage? Do we need more compassion? Okay, what is it that we need? And so if we look around, this is an example. If you look around your life and you're seeing hatred, injury, doubt, despair, darkness, or sadness, if you keep focusing on that, you're going to experience that. And it seems like we're having this experience more and more just on social media, right? There's so many things posted, and they're hateful, or they're full of tragedy, and they don't make us feel any better about our lives. Usually we're either getting worked up, or we're feeling conflict in our heart, or we're feeling this great sadness. Now, what happens when we start getting overwhelmed with all that stuff? we're releasing more cortisol into our system, right? The not feel good hormone is what we're releasing into our system. So if we look around and we see hatred, injury, doubt, despair, darkness, or sadness, we don't want to keep feeling all that. And we don't want to keep giving that, which if we get caught up in it, that's what we're going to reflect back into the world. We want to think about what do we want to experience, because that's what we want to give. We don't want to experience the hatred, injury, doubt, despair, darkness, or sadness. We don't want to experience that. What we want to experience is love, forgiveness, faith, hope, light, and joy. That's what we want to experience. So that is what we will want to give. See, if we see hatred, injury, doubt, despair, darkness, and sadness, right? If that's what we're seeing, but we want peace in our life. If we want peace, we have to rise above all of that. If we want to be an instrument of peace, we have to rise above the hatred, injury, doubt, despair, darkness, sadness, and instead give love, forgiveness, faith, hope, joy, and light. Okay? That's what we want to give. We're giving all day long, actually. We are giving all day long, because giving is not just about doing a favor. Giving is not just about opening the door or giving somebody a gift of time or attention or money. Everything we do, we're giving something. Okay, you get in your car and you go driving. If somebody cuts you off, do you just give them a little mercy because maybe they're in a rush and freaking out? Do you give them a little mercy, or do you give out frustration? Right? Are you giving out judgment, or are you giving a little compassion? Right? That's what we want to look at, because we're always giving something. But see, if we want to be an instrument of peace, we want to rise above the things in our life that are frustrating us and give what we need. Give what we need. The love, forgiveness, faith, hope, light, and joy. Okay? Remember, we're always giving something. And through that giving, we are always affecting, of course, ourselves and the people around us. So here is our call to action this week, our affirmation. I give to live, I live to give. Let's say that together 3 times. I give to live, I live to give. I give to live, I live to give. I give to live, I live to give. I talk about how we're here to create heaven on earth. Okay? We are here to create heaven on earth, because remember that gift, when we give with an open, loving heart, whether it's an actual present or whether it's a shoulder to cry on, or we're giving somebody our time and listening. We're listening with our ears instead of formulating a reply. We're giving, and that is the manifestation of spirit in an experience that we have just created, right? We're creating greater good this way. So if we are here to create heaven on earth, this is about harmonizing our thoughts with the divine, right? Harmonizing our thoughts with the divine, right? Aligning with our inner being. And we do this through giving, right? We do this through giving. When we are in alignment with our inner being, what we're creating then in our lives, what we are giving, is always going to be for our highest good and the highest good of those around us, right? The way that we show up in our life is an act of giving, right? How we show up is an act of giving. So what are we giving? What are we giving? Are we creating heaven on earth with that giving? Or are we creating more suffering in our own lives with that giving? So our invitation for this week is we want to ask ourselves, right? What do I want to give? What do I want to give? How do I want to create this experience of heaven on earth? If I'm here to create heaven on earth, how do I want to show up for that right now? Right? How? What can I give right now to be an instrument for peace? What could I give to show up in a more loving way, in a kinder, gentler, patient way? How could I give of myself? How could I show up and give more understanding and compassion? Right? How can I give? How can I give right now? Ernest Holmes said, life is ever giving of itself. We must receive, utilize, and extend the gift. Life is always giving to us. Life with a capital L. And life gives so much more to us than we could ever use, that we could ever even imagine, right? And when life gives us a gift, it is the manifestation of spirit in our lives. So when we utilize that, right, we receive it and then we utilize it. And when we utilize it, that's how we're creating our next experience, through our choices, right? Our choices. We're aligning with our inner being and we're doing the next best thing. So this is how we're showing up. And so we are utilizing it to our best. And then we give it out. We give it out in the way that we show up in a bigger, bolder, brighter way than we did yesterday, right? Everything we give will be infused with that gift of life. And this is how we are creating heaven on earth. So remember, you are divinely designed to be doing all of this. There's that within you that always knows what to do, how to do it, and it compels you to act on what it knows. And everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is.